All right, what's going on, guys? Will Reichling here, Hold My Helmet Football Podcast. Welcome back to another week of fun. The NFL Top 100 players have voted on the list for 2024. So we are going to go through it, at least the top 30, maybe 40 players, and we're going to see where they got it right, where the players got it wrong. Lamar Jackson being voted as a better player than Patrick Mahomes. I don't necessarily agree with that either. How is Patrick Mahomes not number one? But we will get into that. So like, subscribe, share, keep watching my videos. We see a little bit of an uptick in views lately. I really appreciate that. You know, we're trying our best right now. The season's coming up. We got preseason games this week. My Jets playing the Commanders. You got a bunch of games coming up this week. We had the Hall of Fame game about maybe a week or two ago. I forget exactly when it was, but all that coming up and all more to come. So keep watching me and I'll keep giving you content. Let's do this. So, well. Let's get into the top 10 first because it gets interesting right off the bat here. Number 1, we got Tyreek Hill. 2, we got Lamar Jackson. 3, Christian McCaffrey. 4, Patrick Mahomes. 5, Myles Garrett. 6, Chris Jones. 7, Trent Williams. 8, TJ Watt. 9, Travis Kelce. And 10, Max Crosby. So let's get right into it. I mean, the obvious one here is, how is Patrick Mahomes not number 1 on a down season where everyone thought that their team, this is finally the year that they're not going to go to the Super Bowl. They go to the Super Bowl and they win the Super Bowl. I heard a stat from Nick Wright where the last 2 playoff appearances the Chiefs had the last 2 seasons, that they 4 out of the 5 or 5 out of the 6 games that they were the underdog and they ended up winning. So it's kind of crazy how long we've been down the Chiefs. And I think the tide turned for me when I saw that AFC Championship game against Lamar Jackson, specifically, who's voted over Patrick Mahomes. He's the number 2 player in the league and the number 1 quarterback in the league. Maybe they're going by overall player, but I would still put Mahomes as the number 1 overall player in the league. Maybe they're going because Lamar has the running ability factor, but Mahomes can move too. Obviously not like Lamar, but Mahomes has all the tools you want on the quarterback, and even with a down season, he still won a Super Bowl. So I don't know what else you want from the guy. But that AFC Championship game, specifically against Lamar Jackson, that was the game where I picked the Ravens to win. And they embarrassed me. They embarrassed themselves. I mean, I'm sorry. I thought Lamar Jackson was finally going to get over the hump and go to the Super Bowl, and he just hasn't been able to do that yet. If you look at his playoff stats and his regular season stats, I'm sorry, it's 2 different quarterbacks. He played decent in the second half against the Texans, but it was more of just his roster being overwhelmingly better than the Texans roster at the time. Patrick Mahomes is the best player in the league. I mean, I don't really think we should be arguing this. I think just the players get a little bored. They want to spice things up. I don't necessarily have a problem with Tyreek Hill being number 1. I mean, if I had to go non-quarterback number 1, I'd probably go with Christian McCaffrey. You know, the guy gets 2,200 total yards last season. I mean, the guy, Christian McCaffrey, since he's gone to the Niners, he hasn't been injury-prone anymore. He's been the most effective piece on the most effective team in the league. I mean, they're a dominant regular season team. I understand before he got there that they were an effective running team too, with Raheem Mostert, Elijah Mitchell. Before that, Jeff Wilson at one point. But once McCaffrey got there, it went to a whole nother level. The offense went to a whole nother level. You didn't really have to use Debo as much to run the football either. Because Debo, I forgot to mention him. He was a big factor in the running game too. Christian McCaffrey's, I think Kyle Shanahan probably is in love with Christian McCaffrey at this point. I mean, if he had to marry himself to a football player for the rest of his life, as far as him being in the NFL and someone that he wanted to coach for the rest of his career, it would probably be Christian McCaffrey. I mean, Christian McCaffrey is the engine that keeps the whole system running. I mean, Christian McCaffrey is perfect for that offense. If you're going to go with someone to be the number 1 player in the league other than Patrick Mahomes, I would have picked Christian McCaffrey. But I don't necessarily have a problem with Tyreek Hill being number 1. I have a problem with Lamar Jackson being ahead of Patrick Mahomes, because Lamar Jackson showed that in the biggest moments, he kind of folds a little bit, and that he can't necessarily, I'm still not convinced that he can operate 100% from the pocket when teams know he has to throw. He showed that, in that game, the AFC Championship game, we all said, Tom Monken, the offensive coordinator, made a big mistake by not having Lamar Jackson run more. But in critical moments when you're down, your star quarterback can't throw the ball in the pocket. And I know he can. And I know he's improved vastly from throwing within the pocket. I think he's a better pocket quarterback than people think. But that's still left to be desired in the playoffs. I can't deny that. I just can't. But as far as everything else, that's the biggest one, I think, on the entire top 100 list is the fact that Patrick Mahomes is not number one. I'm pretty sure everyone's shocked about that. And anyone that's not shocked about that is honestly just either a hater or just trying to give a hot take. Maybe that's what the players were trying to do here. I don't really know. Maybe they were in cahoots. I don't really know. But I probably would win Christian McCaffrey if it wasn't Mahomes. I think Christian McCaffrey probably should have been number two. So that's the first one, Patrick Mahomes not being number one. Again, I don't have the biggest issue with Tyreek Hill being number one because, again, I really think he was on pace to get 2,000 receiving yards last year before the injury and before he kind of fell off after the injury. Still finished with, I'm pretty sure, almost 1,800 yards, receiving yards, and I don't have a problem with this. I mean, I think he is the best receiver in the league as of right now. I know Justin Jefferson is still there. We'll talk about him in a little bit, but I do think Tyreek Hill is the best receiver in the league. Is he the best player in the league? I would go Mahomes or Christian McCaffrey there, but I don't necessarily have the biggest problem with it. I just, Lamar, obviously, I mean, I think we all agree that Patrick Mahomes is a better player than Lamar Jackson. And we got to give the players credit here because they aren't watching every single game. They're playing, majority of teams play on Sunday, and they're playing every Sunday with those teams. They don't sit there and watch all the highlights of every team unless they have film going into the week and they're playing that team the very next week. So we have to give the players a little bit of props here. And they might just be going off strictly last season. And you remember, they voted in December. So strictly off last season in December, Lamar Jackson, he crushed the 49ers. I mean, he was really rolling. So, I mean, I totally understand it. But now looking back, it's kind of funny how they vote in December and then everything happens in January and you kind of have to see the results of everything. So maybe hindsight's 2020 here, but I think we all know Mahomes is better. But maybe people want to spice it up this season. That's really all I could say. Another big thing with this top 10, I mean, a lot of defensive players in here, so I'm glad they're giving props to the defense. And Myles Garrett is the best defensive player in the league. I won't argue that. Chris Jones is, I'm fine with him being second. I'm glad that TJ Watt's finally getting the credit that he deserves. I mean, let's be honest. TJ Watt, we all know that he's elite. We all know that he's been everything that the Steelers have wanted. He's one of the best pass rushers in the league. But I think he's a little bit underrated, in my opinion. I think people give the credit to Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, Chris Jones. You don't really hear many people talk about TJ Watt. He got hurt at the end of the last season. You kind of saw Pittsburgh's defense struggle a little bit after he got hurt. He's so effective for that team. Remember, J.J. Watt, his brother, one of the most dominant defenders in NFL history, at his prime. But you can make the argument, is T.J. Watt better than his brother? He had 19 sacks last season. I'm pretty sure he's been creeping 20s, and I'm pretty sure he got 21 season. But I think he's just really underrated, T.J. Watt. I think he's one of the most valuable. I think he's the best player on the Steelers, let's be honest. Who's better than T.J. Watt in the Steelers? And I do think J.J. Watt in his prime was the more dominant player. But I do think T.J. Watt, I think the gap is smaller than people think. I think T.J. Watt has really tightened that gap. I don't think he lives in the shadow of his brother anymore, T.J. Watt. I think he's become a top player in the league, and he's on track to be a Hall of Famer. But one thing I will say is J.J. Watt was number one on this list in the past. I'm pretty sure it was 2015. T.J. Watt hasn't sniffed that yet. So, I mean, he's a great player, one of the best players in the league. Top 10 for sure, and I think it's well-deserved, but he's not his brother yet. Maybe he gets there. I don't know. I'm definitely not doubting him because he's been a great player for sure. The last biggest problem I have with the top 10 is, Travis Kelce, is he really the ninth best player in the league? Is he really a top 10 player still? He had his worst season since the Mahomes era. I think he's on the decline. He's kind of started to show his age a little bit. I know in the playoffs he started to go off again, started to play like old Travis Kelce, making a huge catch in the Super Bowl to set up the game-winning touchdown in overtime, the game-tying field goal before overtime. But I would have him in the top 50, maybe even top 30, top 20, but 9 feels a little too high for me. Feels a little too high. I get it. Maybe a lot of this is just the respect of being one of the greatest tight ends ever. So they're kind of giving him his props. So if he has another season sub 1,000 receiving yards, I can't see him being a top 10 player again. Let's go to 11 to 20 now. Fred Warner at 11, Josh Allen at 12, CeeDee Lamb at 13, George Kittle at 14, Jalen Hurts at 15, Dak at 16, Micah Parsons at 17, Justin Jefferson at 18, Roquan Smith at 19, and CJ Stroud at 20. This one's a little bit sketchy. I'm not going to lie. Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott in the top 20. I really like Jalen Hurts. I think he's a top 10 quarterback still after a down season. But is he a top 20 player? Maybe people are still remembering 2 seasons ago where he made the Super Bowl and he had a great Super Bowl performance. But he had a little bit of a down season and maybe he came back to earth a little bit. So is he really a top 20 player? I don't necessarily know. But I'm not doubting him, but I feel like he should have been in the 20s, maybe the 30s. And Dak Prescott, 16. I understand he was the runner-up MVP. He finished second last season. He had a great year. He's really shown that he can put up top numbers in the regular season. I'm not denying that. But Dak Prescott over Justin Jefferson, come on. I know Justin Jefferson was hurt. I know he didn't have the best quarterback play once Kirk Cousins was out for the season. I know he kind of didn't have a great start and got injured and came back. He didn't have his top-notch season last year, but he's still, I think, other than Tyreek Hill, one of the best receivers in the league. Tyreek Hill, I think, is more explosive right now. I mean, we really have to see how it plays out next year. But Justin Jefferson being behind Dak Prescott, I know the quarterback's one of the most valuable positions. I know Dak Prescott finished second in MVP voting, but it just doesn't sit right with me to have Dak Prescott ahead of Justin Jefferson as far as a football player. Dak Prescott's an average, slightly above average, to maybe good, solid quarterback. Justin Jefferson's, in his first 4 or 5 seasons, one of the best wide receivers of all time. So he's really been on an incredible tear, and you can't really compare that to Dak Prescott putting up good seasons and coming short in the playoffs. It's a little different, ranking quarterbacks, ranking wide receivers. I think it's just showing how important the quarterback position is in the league, and I guess players are starting to see that a little bit, but those two, it's just a little weird for me. CJ Stroud at 20 also is another one. Great rookie season. He really showed that he could step up to the plate. He even went toe-to-toe with Lamar Jackson in that game in Baltimore, the divisional round. They lost at the end of the day, but, he made it interesting. Made it interesting for sure. They added pieces in the offseason. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure. There's going to be a lot of pressure for sure. And you got to remember, this is top 100 players going to 2024, not of last season. So my prediction is I think there's going to be some very slight regression. And for that, I don't really think he's going to be a top 20 player this season. I don't think he is a top 20 player right now. It's just one season. So I really can't say that he's one of the best players in the league after one great season. I hear a lot of people saying that he had the best statistical season for a rookie ever. Look at Justin Herbert's numbers, guys. I think that was a better rookie season than CJ Stroud. It's just the fact that he had a crap team around him and a crap head coach that he couldn't make they had a shit team, let's be honest. So Justin Herbert's rookie season, I think, was better. But if you go to 21 to 30, we got 21 A.J. Brown, 22 Penei Sewell, 23 Amon-Ra St. Brown, 24 Dexter Lawrence, 25 Jalen Ramsey, 26 Mike Evans, 27 Nick Bosa, 28 Brock Purdy, 29 Khalil Mack, 30 Deebo Samuel. Not too many problems with that one. Maybe Brock Purdy's like a little too high for me, but I understand putting him in the top 30. I mean, he's first 2 seasons of his career have been staggering numbers, probably some of the best numbers in NFL history for a quarterback's first 2 seasons. So I can't really knock them for that. I'm glad to see Brock Purdy getting his respect. It's a little high, but I understand it. Jalen Ramsey's kind of on the decline, but the fact that people still see him as a top 25 corner, he still can cover, and he's a great tackler. He knows how to play the position. So, 31 to 40. I have a couple problems with this one for sure. 31, DaRon Bland. 32, Quincy Williams. 33, Puka Nacua. 34, Jordan Love. 35, Josh Hines Allen, 36, Tua, 37, Quinnen Williams, 38, Sauce, 39, Joe Burrow, and 40, Devontae Adams. Glad to see 3 Jets in the 30s, though. That makes me feel good for sure. Quincy Williams finally getting his respect. I mean, number 32 in the league. People are finally starting to see that he's an elite linebacker. I have a big problem with DaRon Bland at 31. So you have DaRon Bland over Sauce Gardner. You have DaRon Bland over Pat Surtain. You have DaRon Bland over Trent McDuffie, who didn't even make this list, which I'll get into later. You have DaRon Bland over a lot of really good to elite cornerbacks in the league. I understand he had, 5, 6 pick sixes last year, which was a record. But don't you guys feel like that was kind of a fluke thing? Do you really think he's going to be having pick sixes and catching that many interceptions like that every single season? You really got to look at the coverage rates. And if you look at the coverage rates, Sauce Gardner was number 1 to number 2 in almost every category in PFF. Sauce Gardner, Pat Surtain, or Jalen Ramsey is the best corner in the league. Not DaRon Bland, who's now number 2 on this list. I think players saw Like I said, they don't watch all the games. So players saw the 5 pick sixes, 6 pick sixes, and were like, wow, this guy's elite. He's great. I mean, he was a second-round pick, and he's really lived up to the hype. With alongside now Trevon Diggs coming back from injury, this guy's a chance to be special, no doubt. But he's not the number 2 corner in the league. So we got to slow down here because Sauce Gardner, I think people like to knock Sauce Gardner because, one, the Jets are a very unlikable team, and two, Sauce Gardner, the chain, the nickname Sauce, I think people prey on his downfall. And, he's a little on the skinnier side. People say he likes to commit a lot of pass interferences. I think it's a lot bull of crap. I think he's a great corner, and he's got a long, elite career ahead of him. And I think he deserves to be ahead of DaRon Bland. I think DaRon Bland's way too high here. It's a little ridiculous to me. Tua Tagovailoa over Joe Burrow? Joe Burrow was drafted over Tua. Joe Burrow's won more playoff games than Tua. Joe Burrow's made a Super Bowl. Tua hasn't. Joe Burrow's beaten Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. Tua hasn't. Joe Burrow is the better quarterback. Let's be honest here. I know he was out for the season. I know he started off last season really slow, but he picked it up. Don't look, the Niners game. Just go watch that. That answers all my questions here. But I know he starts off slow. I know he had a really serious injury, but there's no chance in hell that I am taking Tua Tagovailoa over Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is the better quarterback. I think he's too low here. 39 is kind of crazy to me. But I understand him coming off a serious injury, starting the last 2 seasons off slow. He's the only guy that's went toe-to-toe with Mahomes in the playoffs and has won. He's 3-1 against Mahomes in his career. If there's anyone that's going to take the Chiefs down this year, it's probably going to be the Bengals. So let's not forget about Joe Burrow. I think people... It's what have you done for me lately? I'm starting to feel like this list is a best players 2023 list, not the best players going into 2024. It feels like almost a recency bias list here. Joe Burrow deserves to be way higher, and another player deserves to be way higher. Davante Adams. They have him at 40. That seems way too low to me. And I kind of have the same feeling as most people. I'm like, Davante Adams. He had a down season last season for sure. He probably had like 900 yards, maybe created 1,000. He had 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns. So he clearly got it done. Despite all the chaos, Garoppolo sucking, getting benched, Aiden O'Connell, who's average at best. The guy put up 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns. The year before that, with all that chaos with McDaniel, Derek Carr, he put up one of his best seasons of his career. 1,500 yards, double-digit touchdowns. The guy performs. I think he's a top 30 player. He's probably be about 10 to 15 spots higher. I think he's going to bounce back this season. I think eventually he's going to get a quarterback that can distribute the ball to him. I like Gardner Minshew. I think he's going to win the starting job here. So I think he's going to be able to get Davante Adams more touches. And Davante Adams is going to have a better season this year than previous years. But he didn't play bad. I mean, he's still a top 10 receiver in the league. And they basically have him like that here. But there's no way Tua is better than Davante Adams. I don't even think Puka Nacua is better than Davante Adams. Like I'm saying, this is a recency bias list. It's not best players of 2023. It's best players going to 2024. And going to 2024, Davante Adams is a better wide receiver than Puka Nacua. Plain, fact, simple. We have 16 quarterbacks in the top 100. This is kind of crazy. 16. Lamar Jackson was the first quarterback. He was ranked second. Patrick Mahomes is the second quarterback. He was ranked fourth. Josh Allen third. He was ranked 12th. Jalen Hurts fourth. He was ranked 15th. Dak fifth. He was 16th. CJ Stroud sixth. He was ranked 20th. Brock Purdy 7th. He was ranked 28th. We have Jordan Love ranked at 34. Tua ranked at 36. Joe Burrow ranked at 39. Matt Stafford 42. Jared Goff 48. Justin Herbert 75. Kirk Cousins 81. Aaron Rodgers 92. And Trevor Lawrence 94. So a lot of big problems here. One, is Trevor Lawrence really a top 100 player? I think that's kind of a little bit of bias of what he's supposed to be. I mean, rather than what he's really done in the league so far. I think he's a top 20 quarterback for sure, but a top 100 player. It's just really showing that quarterback, like 16 quarterbacks are not top 100 players in the league. It's just showing that the quarterback position is overvalued a little bit too much here. I mean, it's kind of crazy. Kirk Cousins coming off a torn Achilles, coming off a torn Achilles. In his mid-30s now, and he's ranked 81. DJ Moore doesn't make the list, but Kirk Cousins does. Aaron Rodgers, I can't knock Aaron Rodgers knock Aaron Rodgers being on here. Not because I'm a Jet fan, because he's a 4-time MVP, so let's not go there. But Trevor Lawrence over DJ Moore, Trevor Lawrence over Trent McDuffie, I don't really agree with that. Tua He's above 7 guys on this list. He's above Joe Burrow. He's above Matt Stafford. He's above Jared Goff. He's above Justin Herbert. He's above Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, and Trevor Lawrence. I think 6 out of those 7 guys I listed are better than Tua. I think Joe Burrow's way better than Tua. I think Matt Stafford and Tua doesn't even sniff Stafford's jockstrap. Let's be honest here. I think Jared Goff's better than Tua. I think Justin Herbert's better than Tua. I think Kirk Cousins is better than Tua if he's healthy. I think Aaron Rodgers is way better than Tua. I do think Tua is better than Trevor Lawrence from what I've seen so far over both of their careers. But 6 out of 7 guys are better than Tua. That I think that Tua's ahead of on this list. I think the players see too much of what happens in the regular season of 2023 specifically with this list, and they're like, okay, this is how we're going to rank them specifically. They were just too strict on what they saw in 2023. If I was going to grade the top 100 players going to 2024, I would do it as far as what I see in 2023 and take the overall resume too on top of that. So I do like that they put Aaron Rodgers in the top 100. He's a top 100 player, let's be honest. I know he had a down season his last season in Green Bay. He looked a little slow in those four plays on the Jets, but the year before that he was back-to-back MVP. So, I mean, let's slow the brakes on Aaron Rodgers sucking. He's a top 100 player for sure. Christian McCaffrey's the only running back in the top 40. 5 running backs made the top 100, only 5. 3 tight ends made the top 100, only 3. 16 quarterbacks made the top 100, like I said. 20 wide receivers made the top 100. So wide receivers are becoming more and more valuable, even oversaturated in a way. But remember, there's 2 to 3 starting wide receivers. There's only 1 starting quarterback. So 20 wide receivers making the top 100 kind of makes sense. 16 quarterbacks making the top 100 doesn't really make sense. But like I said, big pieces that did not make this top 100. How did DJ Moore not make it? I mean, the guy has been consistently 1,000-plus yards every year. With Justin Fields last season at 1,300 yards, other than Deebo Samuel, as far as wide receivers, I think he's the best to second best in the league as far as yards after the catch when he has the ball in his hands. He's a great guy to make a man miss in the open field when he has the ball in his hands. He's very explosive and dangerous. I think he's an elite receiver. I think he's a top 20 receiver for sure. He might even be potentially top 15. The fact that 20 wide receivers made the top 100 over him, I think he's better than Terry McLaurin. I think he's better than a lot of receivers on that list. So I don't necessarily agree with that. I love Garrett Wilson. I think DJ Moore is better than Garrett Wilson right now. Right now, yes, for sure. Another one. How did Trent McDuffie not make the top 100? He's a top 2-3 corner in the league. A lot of people will argue that he's the best corner in the league. It's kind of ridiculous that this guy did not make the top 100. I mean, it kind of shows that sometimes people don't know about players. They're quiet. They're on teams that, they have stars like Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Chris Jones. You kind of fly under the radar. So for a guy as elite as Trent McDuffie, as far as like being a lockdown corner in this league and winning a Super Bowl on one of the best defenses in the league, for him not to make the top 100 is a little ridiculous to me. I think the players got to get it right next season. I think they will. If he has another season like he does this year to next year, he'll be in the top 30, top 20 maybe. So that's my biggest gripe. DJ Moore not making it and Trent McDuffie not making it for sure. Other than that, I think, 2 is too high. I mean, CJ Stroud's a little high. A lot of quarterbacks are really high on this. I think they should have pumped the brakes with quarterbacks. I don't remember 16 making it last year, but I could be wrong. I don't think it was 16 for sure. Let's not forget Joe Burrow's coming back, and he's going to be healthy, so him at 39 is a little crazy too. One more I want to get into. A lot of people are kind of going crazy, like, really? Matt Stafford over Jared Goff? Let's not forget, the Rams traded Jared Goff for Matt Stafford, then won a Super Bowl. I know Matt Stafford didn't get it done in the Lions. He had Calvin Johnson, had Ndamukong Suh, had some decent talent there. But he comes to the Rams, finally has a great offensive head coach in Sean McVay, and immediately wins a Super Bowl. And then he got a bunch of kids to the playoffs last year. And I'm going to be honest, in that game in the playoffs, Lions, Rams, I thought Stafford was the better quarterback. That was the biggest takeaway I had in that game, is that Matt Stafford's a better quarterback than Jared Goff. If you saw some of the sidearm throws he made on third down against the blitz, like, the guy has talent, Matt Stafford, and he's kind of injured and old. So the fact that he's injured and old and he's still playing the way he is pretty impressive to me. I know he kind of got washed away for a bunch of years in Detroit, and I know Jared Goff is better than what people initially thought he was. I do think Jared Goff's a top 12, 13 quarterback in the league. But I think Matt Stafford's better. So I think people griping over Matt Stafford being above Jared Goff, he's a better player. Both of them right now. I have 3 seasons to win a Super Bowl. I have Matt Stafford in his mid to late 30s and Jared Goff, who's probably in his prime still right now. I'm taking Matt Stafford with half his arm broken. I'm taking Matt Stafford. That guy has some Hall of Fame-like talent. He might not be a Hall of Famer. Might not. It's debatable. but he has Hall of Fame talent. I think Matt Stafford's better than Jared Goff.